Well, anyway, that's the big picture. Let me kind of drill it down now to the next level, and that's the division of labor between the village board and the village manager. As I indicated, the village board is the governing body, and as such, they really have perform four functions. First, it's to represent the community. Secondly, it's to develop a long-range vision, in other words, priorities for its future. Thirdly, it's to establish policy that affects the overall operation of the community. And then finally, it's to be responsive to residents' needs and desires. By hiring a professional village manager to implement these policies and oversee day-to-day operations, a village board can then concentrate its efforts on core functions, which are legislative, policymaking, and planning. In my opinion, planning and policymaking are the two activities which are most key. It is really what drives the community. Honestly, I think the legislative role is generally overrated, at least in a consensus building decision-making model, which the Village of LaGrange is. The legislation typically is a byproduct or an enabling action of planning and policy-making processes. We really don't have a lot of 4-3 votes. We're not that fragmented. Even with 4-2 or 5-2 votes, trustees articulate specific reasons, usually based in principle. For example, with zoning variations, you'll have a lot of, I guess depending on how you look at the vote, dissenting votes, and people say, well, I'm doing this in support of the majority of the zoning board of appeals, or I'm doing this in vote of the minority of the vote of the Board of Appeals. So it's based on that kind of principle, as opposed to having 7 different, vastly different opinions that consensus is difficult to reach. I mean, really, the last high drama that I can recall was when Liz voted with the majority not to reduce the max building coverage standard, because she felt that one person really shouldn't decide something, so that kind of divided the community at the time. So that goes back to my point of legislative role. It's there. It's important. It enables actions to occur. But really, it's the planning and the policy making, I think, which are truly the core, more meaningful functions. To further describe the role of the village board, let me express it in terms of quality or qualities or abilities of legislators. One is to have vision, looking beyond the immediate future, and positioning the village to succeed in the future. I've been through a number of strategic planning sessions with the village board, and it's a consistent refrain, no matter who's on the board or the composition of the board as a whole, family-oriented. That's consistently expressed by the community, is to have that family orientation. So much of what we do, in fact, our overarching goal as it relates to the current paradigm under which we operate, is to preserve and enhance the quality of life on New LaGrange, with a major underpinning of that being a family orientation. The next one is to be strategic. I think there's 2 subsets to that. One is being a critical thinker, asking questions like, is this in the best interest of the village? Is it effective? Is it financially sound? And is the scope of the proposal reasonable? What are the unintended consequences? Are there any unintended consequences, and the like? The third one is maintaining a community-wide focus. Being responsive to the individual, but yet looking beyond a neighborhood and considering the entire community. Along with that is the intergovernmental aspect of it. And an example of that is the YMCA project. There are a number of moving parts with that. There's the village interest, there's the developer interest, there's the YMCA's interest, there's the Park District's interest. There are residents who feel a certain way about the project and certain elements of it, and those are interests that need to be taken into consideration as well. So those are some of the challenges for the governing body. When these planning and policymaking principles are put into practice, they result in answering 2 key questions. One is that what are the areas of priority for the village, and then secondly, what do we want to specifically accomplish within those key priorities, so village management knows where to direct staff and village resources. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and minimize that window for a second. Let me go on then to talk about the village manager and describe for you. So what are the village manager's responsibilities? As expressed at the beginning, it's recommend policy, administer policy, and oversee operations. For me, it's PodScore. It's something that they taught in grad school, and I'm sure they do in business school as well. And let me kind of go over those points, that acronym with you one more time, with attaching some definition to it as to how it's applied in Grange. It's plan, organize, direct, staff, coordinate, report, and budget. On the planning aspect of it, it's really two things. It's a macro and micro perspective. Macro perspective is to deal with concepts, long-term strategic thinking, and aiding the village board in accomplishing its vision. On a micro perspective level, it's project approach, defining what that issue is, setting a course of action from a staff level in terms of analysis, and then a recommendation to the board. Organization, for me, it's taking a multidiscipline approach among all the various departments that we have, with an emphasis on team, as well as who's doing what and by when. Direction, emphasis on delegation, communicating a goal to a department head, and giving staff an idea and then letting them develop it. Staffing, it really comes down to people getting it done, assessing talent, assigning it to the appropriate individual or department, and then even reorganizing a business or service delivery model. And a recent example of that is introducing a degreed person to be the department head with public works, something that we didn't do before and something that we felt was needed given the amount of capital projects that we have, the workload, and the fact that we weren't getting things done as much as we wanted to. We felt we had to have really kind of bifurcate the position between somebody with an engineering background to get the capital projects done, and then recognizing Mike Boyvik, with whom you probably know, many individuals that you know, from an operational perspective and dealing with things from getting brush picked up, for leaf collection or snow removal. Coordination occurs both internally and externally. Let's see, reporting, there's a variety of forms of reporting. It's reporting to the village board, again, issue identification, progress reports, and program analysis. It's to the public through mechanisms like this, as well as online. Really what it comes down to is communicating. And then finally, budget, it's the allocation and management of financial resources. All right, so how do we kind of now functionally merge those two areas of responsibility and begin to accomplish village goals?